How's it going? Welcome to This and Chat. My guest for this episode is comedian and camera YouTuber Mark Bennett. I had a ton of fun talking with Mark, and we shared some laughs talking about life, cameras, and a whole lot more. So sit back and enjoy my interview with Mark Bennett. All right, Mark, thanks so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm just trying to straighten out my V-neck here. I want to present myself properly to your public. I'm doing great. How about yourself, Spencer?
Not doing too bad, thank you. Just excited to have you on and talk to you about cameras and life and whatnot.
This is pretty much all I'm good for anyway. Talk about cameras. Anything else? I got nothing to say.
All right, we'll try to get through this then.
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough.
All right, Mark. So I usually kick off all my interviews with this question, and it is, what kind of kid were you? What kind of things were you interested in? And maybe do you have a funny story that kind of sums up what kind of kid you were?
Well, generally, my stories aren't very funny. Ironically, my whole life was about being a comedian. Wanted to be a stand-up comedian my whole life, and that is what I do, in case you don't know or the rest of the world doesn't know. That's my job. My day job is stand-up comedy. And when I was a kid, I also knew I wanted to do stand-up comedy. But here is the funny, not so funny story that about that is that when I was 5 years old, I didn't know what stand-up comedy was, as most 5-year-olds do not. And one of my friends was playing, and he said, "You are so funny, you are going to be a stand-up comedian." And I didn't know what that was, but I liked that he called me funny. So I was like, yeah, I am. And it turns out he was right. This guy, I don't know what he's doing in life. We've lost touch. But this guy can call it, because stand-up comedy from when I was a kid, so class clown, classic, I was a good kid. I did well in school. My parents were very hopeful. Let's call it hopeful. Let's put it nice spin. They were hopeful I would do well. No pressure at all. But my brother and sister, they both did well in school. I did well in school, but what I was interested in was making people laugh at school. So then I would do that, but I would pick my spots. But I was certainly the class clown. Yearbooks, all that stuff. Oh, Mark's going to be a comedian. It's just, there was no secrets about it. It's what I wanted to do. I liked being funny, or at least trying to be funny. And I was good at public speaking. All of my speeches in high school, they were all really comedy routines. And I had already bombed long before I'd ever stepped on stage as a stand-up comic. Because if you progress in the public speaking world, at least back in the let's say 2010s, not 1980s, because I'm super, super youthful. But back in the 80s, all the speeches had to be very serious. So when you got to the regionals, or the whole province was there and the judges were big-time judges, if you had a silly speech, you were a pariah. You were the worst guy in the room. So I had gotten there with my funny speech, but I didn't know that was super inappropriate for the venue, and dead silence. So I was just, it scarred me. I'm still thinking, I'm talking to you about it right now. And so when people are like, "Hey, what's your worst stand-up bomb?" I'm like, before I started stand-up. It was when I was 12 years old, and it never left me. But anyway, I don't know if there was a funny story in there about me being a child, but that's it.
All right, Mark, I gotta ask you, because as another Torontonian, I noticed in a couple of your videos you're wearing, I believe, a North Toronto hockey hat. And
right.
I grew up right in that area, just south of North Toronto Memorial Center. So I gotta ask.
Forest Hill?
Yeah, just that area, Yonge and Davisville, Yonge and Eglinton area. So
yeah.
Was that your neck of the woods when you were growing up in Toronto?
No, I did not grow up in Toronto. As some Canadians might have picked up on by now, I have a very nasally leprechaun accent. I'm from Newfoundland. I got born and raised in Newfoundland. I stayed there for 24 years till I graduated university, and then I moved to Ottawa, started stand-up, moved to Toronto, moved to Los Angeles, then moved back to Toronto. But North Toronto, the reason I have the North Toronto stuff is that although I look like I'm 25 years old, my son plays for North Toronto. So He's we go to the hockey games there. He's young. He just started last year. He's 5, but North Toronto is our arena.
I was gonna ask you, in terms of your stand-up comedy, what is your favorite joke you've done, or like part of routine that you've really enjoyed? It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to do the whole thing, but you can maybe just give us the premise of it.
It's tough. It changes. It evolves over time. You're usually, you're often proud of what you just did, and I like the slice of life stuff, and so the stuff that started to get me, I'm not going to say popular, but the stuff that helped me graduate to becoming a full-time professional, a lot of it was about my growing up and my father. So my dad has, I was about to say had, but he didn't grow it back. My dad had one leg and still has one leg. It has stayed singular. And so the jokes, basically, because I'm not totally PG on the old stand-up, but so basically, in a nutshell, it was growing up with my dad. No matter what you did, if you played a game of softball and you got hit with the ball and you lay down on the field, you start crying, your dad comes out and he says, "Oh, that must hurt. But let me ask you this, do you still have both of your legs? Because it seems like you're crying enough that you lost one of your legs." Maybe, no. And so it was that all through my childhood going, so you feel like that's a problem. Well, what if I just took one of your legs away? Do you think that would be a bigger problem? And so there's some stories about Dad and the way he was. And he's like the nicest guy in the world, but he did remind me. And I liked it. It was perspective. It was like, yep, you're right. I have a bruise, but I can still run down the field, and he can't. So it was the type of thing where you go, it taught me from an early age, sometimes people have real problems, and so you might feel bad right now, and that's okay. But remember, this isn't a real problem. Yeah? Yeah. So like my stand-up, like stuff like that, where I like that you can point something out, and so that people, they can identify with it, they can laugh at it, they can laugh at the situation, but it also kind of highlights something that, guys, we should, and with stand-up, most of it's that. To me, the best stand-ups are, they're telling the truth. They get to the truth some way, some shape or form, and it might sound silly or ridiculous, but if you're paying attention, that what they're really talking about is the truth. And what is the absurdity of like a lot of the cancel culture that's going on. Some comedians, most comedians, they don't like the vibe of the cancel culture, and it's not one of these things where comedians say, "Oh, well, you should be able to say whatever you want." Nobody's ever said that, and that is not true. There's things like hate speech, and no one has ever been able to fully say whatever they want. But the point is, you shouldn't have some people being able to use their thumbs on Twitter and misinterpret something you said and ruin your life. And so when comedians have a backlash against something, it's generally not a political agenda. It's just people, artists, who are saying, here's like the same way Bob Dylan would sing a song. I mean, he's not doing it to support a certain cause. He's saying, this is what I think is the truth. And so comedians, at the heart of it, the good ones anyway, are trying to tell what they think is the truth. And that's why when there's pushback from comics one way or the other, it's like comedians hated Nixon, but they also don't necessarily like how inflamed this cancel culture is. It doesn't mean they're right wing or left wing on any particular point in history. They're just trying to tell you, hey guys, let's look for the truth here. Stop being swayed by all this propaganda nonsense. You know what I mean? How did we get here, Spencer, to this particular line of talking that I'm doing? This doesn't sound much like cameras, does it?
Mark, is there a song that really resonates with you from your childhood? So maybe a song your parents played, maybe you heard on the radio, but for some reason you really have a vivid memory of that song.
I changed my mind halfway through that sentence because I was just going to name stuff that I liked when I was a kid. But if you're talking about songs that resonate, there was It's a song. What was it? It was a Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers song, "Islands in the Stream," and I didn't particularly like the song, but it's just my parents did, and so when that would come on, they would sing it, and so whenever that comes on, it's like I'm 7 years old again, and it's the weirdest thing. My mom, she also liked Charlie Pride as well, so if I ever hear anything by him, it's an immediate flashback. But yeah, it's just like I all of a sudden you're camping in Terra Nova Park. It's a famous national park in Newfoundland, and your mom is in some camper singing along to some crappy radio. So yeah, that's probably Islands in the Stream, which is. Yeah, it's just completely out of left field. There's not a song. I don't dislike Kenny Rogers or Dolly Parton. It's just, but I don't know any of their musical catalog besides The Gambler, and that one that what was it that Whitney Houston made famous? I will always love you. Yeah, yeah. It's a Dolly Parton song. Yeah, yeah. But that's it. Anyway, there you go.
And just kind of on a similar tangent, what was the first album you yourself purchased?
Well, here's what I'll say. I am old enough I was buying cassettes, and there was something called what was it? It was a service where they would send you cassettes in the mail, and you would get eight cassettes for 1 penny, and then you would buy the rest for the next year. And there was that, but the thing that sticks out is when compact discs came in. When I was a preteen, I think, when compact discs started. So what I could say is the first ever album that I was responsible for purchasing was Nirvana, Nevermind, which is that's a pretty good. You bought one album, that your first purchase is one of the great. But unfortunately, my Aunt Mary swooped in and got me my first ever compact disc, and it was the Michael Jackson Black or White album, which is not a bad album, but just doesn't make me sound anywhere near as cool as saying my first ever one was Nirvana. You know what? Just edit that out. Put in Nirvana. Just, I've been cool from the beginning. I didn't listen to Black or White on a loop for hours and hours.
All right, Mark. So, what are some of your interests outside of comedy and cameras? So, maybe like what can we find you doing with
Oh,
your off
good
time?
Lord.
Good Lord, you took up all of my hobbies with comedy and cameras. Yeah, I probably hockey is. I'm an avid sports watcher, and I really like hockey. Not a surprise that the Canadian guy likes hockey, but between comedy, cameras, YouTube, and hockey, I mean that's it. I have 2 kids, so I don't do anything. I should say I read books, but I don't. I want to. One of my hobbies is wanting to read books. Yeah. One day I will. I'll read a book. It's going to be great. It's just like so what I do is I spend my time, like, cameras. There's so many offshoots to the camera thing that, so I will, and the comedy thing. So one of the ways I got into the cameras, I don't know if this is a question I'm ruining for you later, but one of the ways I got into the cameras is that I'm doing stand-up and I need to record the sets. Then I want to record the audio. And then all of a sudden, and then you want to do a short movie, then you want to do a feature-length film, and then, so I just liked learning about those things to do those things. And now I record comics albums that they play on satellite radio, and I record clips for people. But like landscape photography is a hobby of mine. It's an offshoot. It's something I don't really do it for the channel. But it's just something that I do. Most of my stuff revolves around either the kids or those 2 things, and hockey.
I guess my follow up in terms of hockey, were you one of those people who played it all your life? And if so, what is your most memorable moment on the ice?
Well, yeah, I played my whole life till they asked me to stop because I would have kept going, but they said no. This is the professionals need to play now, and you are too old. Sit at home. So, but when I was a kid, we were on a tournament, and Wayne Gretzky, who is certainly the greatest hero of my young life, Wayne Gretzky had scored a hat trick in the playoffs the night before. So I said to my friend Dennis, who was on the team, I said, Wayne Gretzky scored a hat trick, so I'm going to play well. And then I got a hat trick. And he, to this day, he was from Newfoundland, from my same town of 6,000. He lives across the street from me here in Toronto at 44 years of age. And he tells that story still to other people. So, and I think he has other parts of the story, but I do know he tells that story. So it is memorable not just for me, but for him as well.
And hey, if anybody doesn't believe you, you have someone to back you up, right?
That's right. And people generally don't. Like he'll preface it. Don't worry. He'll say, "Listen, guys, I know that Mark sucks, and we all know how terrible he was at most things, but this one day." So he'll always throw that in.
All right, Mark, this next question is a little bit out there, but I think you'll come up with a nice, creative answer. If you could travel back in time, Mark, and witness any events, you're kind of in a bubble, you're invincible, you're safe, what event do you go back in time to see?
Yeah, that is interesting. Saying Gretzky winning the cup is probably not a good one. But so I'll go, you know what I would do is the people say about, that Jesus Christ, those who believe in Jesus Christ, that he stood on this particular place at a particular time, and here's a time period where Jesus did all of the stuff. So whatever people want to believe, that is okay. I just personally, I don't have any beliefs. So I would like to go back to that time period that people say happened and check it out. And if they are right, I'll eat my hat. I'll say, you know what? Fair enough. That dude was there and he did that thing that you said he did. I would love to. And then if he didn't do it, then I would go, well, see, my light. Oh, one of my lights went out. Did it? Oh, my hair light. Oh, it was Jesus Christ. It was. Did you see one of my lights went off? Oh, man, is that a sign? Am I religious now? I'm just, and I have lots of religious friends. And and they can believe whatever you want. But what I'm saying is, since I don't know, and I generally, I describe myself usually as atheist, but I'd be willing. I've been wrong about most things in life, so I would like to go back and see if I'm right or wrong about that, and I would change my views accordingly.
Yeah, that's great, and I love the answer because you'd be surprised how many people choose only to go back 10, 20 years when they could go back anytime.
Back when my stomach was flat. Oh, those were the days.
Exactly.
I just don't want Jesus to turn off any more of my lights.
Yeah, we better change the topic pretty soon.
We better, yeah. We're going to get demonetized by YouTube now.
All right, Mark, we're going to switch pace. Slightly faster questions, but if you want to elaborate 100%, you feel free to.
Sure.
What is your favorite team, Mark?
Pittsburgh Penguins.
Are you a cat person or a dog person?
I like both. I have a cat, but I'm more of a dog person.
M&M's or Smarties?
Both. All sugar. Love sugar.
What's one movie you've seen multiple times?
Barton Fink. It's a Coen Brothers movie.
And same with a TV show. What's one show you've maybe watched through several times?
Night Court. And Seinfeld. I say Night Court because Seinfeld and Friends and stuff, a lot of people will expect that. But stuff that really resonated with me back in the day, Night Court. Really like that show.
Mark, what is one food that reminds you of your childhood?
Bologna.
One food you think everyone should try.
Bologna. No, don't try bologna. Try kale if you haven't. It's not that bad. It's called a superfood, and I've been trying to eat it to be a bit healthy, and I prefer it to almost any leafy green I've ever eaten. Kale is the best tasting. The baby kale, not the regular kale, baby kale.
What was your favorite book as a child?
If I go way back, it's there's a monster at the end of this book with Grover.
What's one book you think everyone should read?
I'm going to say either Confederacy of Dunces or Nausea. One is an existentialist book, and the other one is a comedy book that won a Pulitzer Prize. A Confederacy of Dunces, it won a Pulitzer Prize. Unfortunately, the guy who wrote it was so upset about how it wasn't good enough that he didn't make it, and which really sucks because he had written one of the greatest books of all time. And so yeah, those two.
So, Mark, if you're going on a vacation, would you prefer it to be relaxing or adventurous?
Oh, relaxing, 100%. I hate doing stuff.
Most picturesque place you have been in the world?
Cambodia. Yeah, it was really, really nice beaches.
Mark, if you had a sitcom, what would the theme song be?
I had written a theme song for my sitcom that I had planned when I was 17. It was called The Funny Show, and it was very quick. It was like Seinfeld. I just wanted it to be fast. There's The Funny Show, and then just go straight into the show. You know, it's like with YouTube and stuff. Like my intro is like bap 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 because that's what intros should be. Can't be bothering people. Like back in the day when they used to have Perfect Strangers and stuff, the old sitcoms, like the theme songs were like a half an hour. Even like Friends and stuff, way too long. Let's get to it.
All right, time to get to some camera questions. Mark, do you remember what your first camera was?
I had a little Samsung point and shoot. That was my first one.
What is your favorite camera of all time?
It's probably this. It's the G7, the Panasonic G7. It was the first one I bought. My first mirrorless camera. My son was not born. We were in the waiting area. So my wife was a high-risk pregnancy, so we had to wait for these specialized appointments. So you'd have to wait up to 7 hours for every appointment, and we had to do one every 2 weeks, I think. And so I had a lot of time in that sitting room, and somebody told me, when your baby's born, don't buy yourself a fancy camera and take a bunch of pictures. They'll be terrible. Hire a photographer and don't do that. So I immediately started researching cameras to buy because you don't tell me what to do. So I landed on the G7. It had just recently been released. And I was like, wait a second, there's two different types of cameras. There's ones with mirrors and there's ones without mirrors. I don't understand. And it was because that was new back then. It was like 2015 I was doing that type of research for this. So then I got this guy. So it was sentimental. It took great pictures. It started my YouTube career with my other channel, my comedy channel. And it opened the whole world up. So I got to give it to the little G7.
And on a similar note, what is your favorite lens?
24 millimeter G Master. You're looking at it right now. That's been, like a lot of times you buy like lenses, say this one's expensive and this one's a little bit more and this one's $1,000 and this one's $800. This is the first lens where I noticed the quality, like where I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, definitely this is a G Master lens. And there are some lenses that are also quite good, but it's just like I used to use the 35 a lot on the Sony cameras, and that's a great lens, but things just look different. Now, I mean, it's a different focal length. I'm aware of that. But it's sometimes I shoot this, even when I shoot this on APS-C mode, and that gets me down to 36 millimeters, so very close to the 35, this still looks better. And it's, maybe it's because it goes down to 1.4, so by the time it's at f2, which is what I shoot at in my studio, maybe it sharpens up so crazy, it looks so much better, but it's a G Master. It's supposed to be good. It's just that it's the first lens where I was like, yeah, damn, that is a nice lens. And, relatively speaking, not that expensive. It's the cheapest G Master. It's like $1,300 in the States. And I got it on sale Christmas time for $1,100 from the States, from B&H Photo. Love B&H Photo. I work with those guys. I don't work with them. I have an affiliate with them, and so like the guy is like, is there anything we can do? I'm like, what do you mean? I have affiliates with other people. No one's asking me, is there anything they can do for me? I was like, well, can you lend me some cameras and lenses? The guy was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, but I'm up in Canada. He goes, yeah, I'll ship them up there. Thank you. So like, I really, really like B&H. That's why I mention them as much as I can, because they're very cool. And so yeah, I got this lens there, and $1,100 at the time. And cameras are expensive, and when it comes to spending $1,100, you can do that pretty easily. Do not regret the 24 millimeter purchase.
All right, Mark, if you could make a hybrid camera, so taking the best from every brand, what would that camera be?
That one, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. That will mostly be Panasonic GH5 and the Sony A7 IV. And yeah, mostly that. I would also like it to have, you know what? Let's go Sony, mostly Panasonic GH5 or S5, take your pick, mashed with the A1, because I also want more megapixels so that when I'm shooting photos, I can go into APS-C mode and still have, over 20 megapixels. I would like that. And now Canon, I mean, you can throw in Canon for ergonomics and it's just, I also like Panasonic's ergonomics, and Panasonic they have a slick operating system. They have good touchscreen. They have a lot of the things that Canon have, but a lot of people don't know because they don't use Panasonics. But so I would say that the Canons are generally the most refined. So probably Canon handling, Sony A1 focusing and dynamic range, things like that, and the Panasonic video features, which are just bonkers.
Yeah, I cannot disagree. I think Panasonic is so underrated. I recently switched to Sony just this year, and just the menu system is so much worse than Panasonic. After coming from Panasonic, you're just so illogical.
This G7 from 2015, which costs now about $40, it has a higher resolution touchscrreen than my A7 IV that you're looking at, and the menu is easier, better laid out, more responsive, brighter, nicer. I've complained about it to Sony, to everyone who will listen, that Sony needs better screens and better menus, but they don't care. And I don't know. I mean, they do pack a lot of technology in, so maybe that would cause overheating, and maybe it would drive the price up just too much. Beats me. They must have their reasons for doing it, but I just wish it would be better. But yeah, the Panasonic, when I went from the GH5 to the A7 III, I was really disappointed for quite a while. The thing is with the Sonys, though, what happens is you end up, all your footage works. It all looks good, and it's all in focus, and all of a sudden you start going, as much as I don't like using it compared to the GH5 was ruining so many of my shots, and it was making it so difficult. Like even this, like just this, like every little time I had to do anything, I still use the GH5 in the studio, and so I'll take my phone, I'll tap to focus, and then I'll stay in one place. And then it, like if you're trying to do product shots and B-roll and all that stuff, it's just such a pain in the butt. But if Panasonic, if they had the phase detect autofocus with the GH5 back in the day, we wouldn't even be talking about Sonys and Canons for video. Like it would just, everybody would be a Panasonic shooter, because then they would have switched to full frame Panasonic, and then they would have still had the good autofocus with all their video features. Even now, if Panasonic were to take the S5 and make it the S5 II and have phase detect autofocus, Canon and Sony would lose like 20% overnight. It would just, because they're so great. And there's so many people like me and you who've used them who went, I wish I didn't have to leave you, but I do.
Definitely. I think Panasonic is losing on the solo YouTube creator, just because if you're in front of the camera and you need autofocus, I mean, yes, there are workarounds for the Panasonic, but at the end of the day, it's nice to just turn on your camera and not have to worry about your focus at all.
Yeah, and it's and Sony won't stop with the lens selection. It's so good, and then with the autofocus, it's also not just for the video, but like for your photos and your burst rate. Like if you're watching the Olympics or something like that, the booth with all of the camera guys is Canon and Sony, and Nikon. Now, especially with the Z9 and stuff, but prior to Nikon starting a resurgence, all you see for the last decade is Sonys and Canons and Panasonic. Even though they have full frame cameras and stuff like that, still it's just not great for sports photography and things like that yet. So they've got, but they could have, but they're so good at video. I think they underestimated that the whole YouTube-ness, like a lot of times if I'm commenting on, if I do a Panasonic video and I'm saying, it would be nice to have autofocus, you get some people who are angry. I don't know why they're angry, but they're angry. It's like, you don't need autofocus. I'm like, I'm sure you don't, but it's really, really useful. And so that means when I'm plunking down $3,000 Canadian, I'll go with the one that has good video features and good autofocus, as opposed to the one that has slightly better video features and no autofocus to speak of. So yeah, I mean that's what I have to do.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. And look, this is something my wife says, to talk too much. So let's move it along. We'll move around your because you can't be posting like hour-long conversations. Plus, I gotta go out and do I got a Sony 16-35. I got to send it back. I was supposed to send it back tomorrow, but it's Canada Day. So I'm like, Sony, the mail is closed tomorrow. And they were like, all right, keep it till Saturday. But it's a time crunch that you're under half the time. It's so ridiculous.
No, it seems like you've gotten a lot of lenses lately. The amount of content you're releasing recently with all the lenses and the lights, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a lot. I'm just trying to I could take more time and wrap more to get. I like shooting out the video. Here's one lens. Let's talk about this lens, and I'll do some comparisons to. I tried to do too much, I think, with the Sony lenses, because they sent me 3, and then I tried to compare them to every comparable wide-angle lens that's offered for the APS-C system. So it's a total of 7 videos. I only had 2 weeks, and then halfway through the 2 weeks, they sent me the 16-35G for full frame. So now I've got that. And then I had light that came in the same time. And it's just like, so, trying to do literally 10 videos in 2 weeks it's a lot. It's too much. Too much. That's why they're such poor quality.
All right. So we're going to wrap up these camera questions just really quickly, Mark. Who's your favorite camera YouTuber?
I guess I gotta go with, you know what? I was gonna say Gerald Undone, and he's just so smart, he doesn't, no stone is left unturned, and I appreciate that. But so I'll watch every one of Gerald's for sure. But in terms of favorite, is probably Potato Jet. It's if there's anybody, people used to say in my comments all the time, you're trying to be camera conspiracies, you loser. People said that to me a lot, and they were angry about it. And I was like, I love Casey, but that is not my. I mean, if anything, I kind of I wouldn't mind being a hybrid of, say, Casey and a Gerald, where you have more information, more technical, more gear reviews, but you do it and where you don't take it so seriously. I would take that comparison for sure. But when you look at it, Potato Jet is, it's just I'll never beat Potato Jet because he was and sort of is still, but it's just YouTube takes up all his time now. But he was a working professional in Los Angeles. So, I'm never going to move back to LA, and I'm not going to be working on productions or sets. I'm probably mostly going to do my own things. So I'll never fully be Potato Jet. So probably let's go back to the earlier. I would be a hybrid between Camera Conspiracies and Gerald Undone. That would sort of be ideal for what I'm doing for now anyway. I may eventually morph this into a landscape channel because I love, oh, yeah, scratch all that. It's all. I will say this because people expect Camera Conspiracies. They expect Potato Jet. They expect Gerald Undone. Let's put a pin in that and say, I love all those guys to death. Love them. If they met me, they'd be creeped out by how much I like them. However, my favorite has got to be Photo Tripper. It's his name is Gavin Hardcastle. He is a British landscape photographer who lives in Canada. He just recently moved to Nova Scotia. He was living in Vancouver, and he releases every Sunday. He releases about a half an hour landscape video, and they are also silly as hell. He is a very silly person who makes very funny videos, but he is also an excellent landscape photographer. I bought his book. It's on one of my shelves. I look through it all the time. He is, yeah, that guy. So there you go. My favorite YouTuber is Photo Tripper Gavin Hardcastle.
And what is one piece of gear that you think is overrated and one piece of gear that you think is underrated?
Okay, so let's go underrated. Underrated first, I'll say, is this color checker here. This thing is, one of the reasons I have to go after this, I can go shoot something for my Sony 16-35 video, is because I didn't use this and my white balance is all off. It's green. It looks awful. So now I have, because I use this almost, I would say 99% of the time. It's just, I thought I had my white balance set from a previous shot and I didn't think the light had changed. So I was wrong. The light had changed and my whole footage is green, and you can shift the color, but it never looks right. And when you're a camera channel talking about how good a lens is, you can't have it looking not good enough. So I have to reshoot that. And why is that? Because I didn't use my little color checker. This thing is, and in fact, if I didn't have time to go reshoot that, because if I had had this in the shot, I could have readjusted my colors and fixed it. And it also has a little white balance thing and a focus chart. This is for your Panasonic users, focus. And then this is to get your white balance. And you can also white balance on this later, but you get the white balance in camera. And so this, very, very underrated, about $130, and easily the best $130 I have ever spent in terms of cameras. I could have used this as underrated too. This is going to get an honorable mention. It's a little plastic Ulanzi thing, and it's a little tripod, but the genius is for the vlogging is it extends. So you can always get that little bit of reach when it's a bit too tight. And so I love this thing. Honorable mention for underrated Ulanzi tripod. Okay, overrated. This is tough. I love everything. I would have said gimbals a little while ago, but I've really gotten into gimbals. So they have been quite helpful, especially with the Sony and the bad stability. And really like shallow depth of field. Let's go with that. Wait, is that a piece? No, you said a piece of gear. You said a piece of gear. I'm just looking. I am looking around my studio for pieces of gear that I think are. I don't buy things that are crappy, but let's see. Piece of gear overrated. You know what? I'm going to say sliders. I know there's a huge pause there, but I'm assuming you can edit that in post. I'm going to say sliders. I do like sliders, and I do use them, but I thought I would use them more than I do use them because it's bulky, it's big, and you got to take it around and you got to set it up. And now I'm renovating my garage and I plan to put like a studio out there, and I will put a slider on a tripod and I will leave it there, and that will help me do some of my B-roll shots. So I will definitely still use it, but for a lot of people who want to get into YouTube or content creation, a lot of times people buy a slider pretty early on, and I find that you won't use it early on, especially but they can be extremely useful. But you don't need them really for anything, but it's nice to have. It's a nice to have and not a necessity.
All right, Mark, I feel like you maybe kind of touched upon this in your other answers, but what is your YouTube story? What got you into it, and how's the experience been for you?
Yeah, so I was, for the comedy, I wanted to do a YouTube channel to help my stand-up career, more or less, and I just like making videos, so I kind of wanted to do that. But then I realized pretty quickly that I actually like the gear more than I like making videos about comedy. Like the comedy videos about stand-up, it's quite niche, and there's not a ton of views. There wasn't a ton of interest. The people who like it really like it, but it doesn't have mass appeal, and it's difficult to do the stand-up because if you're filming comedians, you gotta ask them ahead of time. You gotta lug all the gear to the club. And then it's dark in all the green rooms, and it's hard. You gotta set up lights and all for these little YouTube videos that very few people are watching. And if they tell jokes on stage and you show that, then now I got to ask them, is it okay to broadcast your jokes on YouTube? And some of them have recordings, so then there's copyright issues. There was all kinds of reasons why making the comedy videos is a bit tricky. And also I'm at the club, and usually because, when they see me in the club, they're like, Mark Bennett, we gotta get him up on stage. He's amazing. But I usually, when I go to clubs, it's because I know the club pretty well, and they will usually ask me to go do stand-up. So now I've got to worry about doing a set with all that gear around while I take pictures of other people and blah. So all that to say, I was thinking, you know what I'd really just like to do is make videos about the gear itself. And that was starting to get quite popular around the time when I was thinking that, around 2016 or so. People started, guys like Gerald Undone started popping up, and Casey Neistat was making everything popular. And so I was just, so I just thought one day, I was living in an apartment and it was small, so I didn't have a lot of room. I was thinking when I move to a house, I will start doing stuff about cameras, and that's what I did. As soon as we moved to this house, I set up this little studio, and then it's just been nonstop. And I like making the videos. I mean, I do a little too much right now. I'm gonna have to slow down a bit. I can't do a video every day or two. It's quite ridiculous. And but it's just when they've been sent a lot of gear, I'd like to get it out. And the channel is growing right now, and I'm trying. YouTube, they like to beat you down. So I'm trying to harness. Like at first, it's like, oh, you're getting 50 subscribers a day. And then YouTube's like, yeah, well, now it's 20 subscribers a day. And now it's 10 a day because you didn't post a video in 4 days. So like you're constantly swimming upstream. I work 10 times harder now to get the same numbers that I got 10 months ago. You know what I mean? And I know they're doing that on purpose. I know that's their whole algorithm's mentality. But so right now I'm kind of trying to break it. They cap you. If you look at your numbers, they you go to a TubeBuddy, and you can see other people's numbers compared to your numbers. Say like a Chris Howe. He's getting 150 subscribers a day, every day, straight line. Well, that's impossible unless, of course, they're capping him. They show his videos enough to get 150 subscribers, and then that's it. And for me, at first it was 10, then it was 20. I got to 50 at one point, then they dropped me back down. And now with all these influx of videos I'm doing, it's 50 again, but 50 straight line. Chris Howe 150, me 50 straight line, because it's clearly a math equation that they're doing. So I'm kind of trying to break that math equation by an onslaught of videos about popular products, hoping that one or a few of them kind of get more views than YouTube expects, and they stop banging my head off that 50 ceiling, because that's what they've been doing for 3 weeks now, just straight across.
So obviously, Mark, you like making videos, you like making videos about gear, but what aspect of photography or videography do you enjoy the most?
So photography, I like taking pictures of the family and landscapes. And in terms of videography, I really like it when I make interviews for like the comics and stuff look professional. You know, these are guys like me. They're going to the club, to some beer swilling club there where they're paying you like $100 to do, you know, your set, and it's, you know, it's fun, but like it's not, you're not at a theater, you know, you're just out, a very blue collar type vibe to the clubs. And then so when you can show them the interviews that you do with them, where they're just sitting down in this rinky-dink club and it looks like a documentary, I like that. I like being able to take what is, you know, pretty regular gear, which is not cheap, of course, it's not free, but it's stuff that we can get as regular consumers. You know, we're not buying Arri Alexas, but we can buy, you know, a GH5, and to be able to make it look like something that people have seen on TV. I like that a lot. I mean, that's almost the whole premise of the channel, really, is just, I want to review gear and show people lenses and cameras and mics and lights, but I want to show them in a way where they think, well, that looks good enough to be on TV, what that guy is doing right now. Because how can I tell you, hey, this is a good lens, if the video looks like, you know, your Aunt Mary taped it with a camcorder? You know what I mean?
Mark, do you have a dream collaboration? It doesn't necessarily have to be with someone on YouTube, but I guess that would make the more sense, but someone you'd like to work with.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Potato Jet and iPhondo and Patrick Tommaso. I like that guy a lot. We communicate back and forth a little bit in the comments section, so I think he'd be fun to hang out with. He's a guy here in Toronto. Gerald, of course. I've talked to Gerald a little bit because I was editing one of his things. He was trying to get an editor for the podcast with Josh Yo, and I was one of the people in that process. So we communicated back and forth a little bit, and he seems like a good guy. People think that I get a lot, you should do a collaboration with Camera Conspiracies, but I don't know what he'd be like as a human being in real life. I mean, I'm hoping he'd be great, but I would be fearful that I would show up and he would not like me. You know what I mean? Like, because he's so critical about so many things. Like, what if he hates me and my channel? You know, I just assume that. So why? But if he liked me, sure, that'd be a great collaboration. Sure.
And the last question, Mark, is what is one thing you'd like to achieve in your lifetime? And this is not limited to YouTube, but just life in general.
Okay, now I'm not trying to sound morbid here, but things have changed dramatically for me. When I was young, what I wanted more than anything was to be Matthew Perry on Friends. So my whole idea for starting stand-up and all these things was I'll get on TV, I'll be on a sitcom, and I'll write that sitcom as well. Like whether Matthew Perry, Seinfeld, take your pick. But I was down in Los Angeles, and I've been on TV a few times, and I have some friends who run TV shows, and like I know that world, and it's not that great. It's, you know, like you would expect when you get into stuff. I mean, there's a lot of sitting around, and there's a lot of fighting, and there's a lot of interference, and a lot of self-doubt, and it's not, and travel, and you're never home, and you're always off on set. You know, the guys who did Lord of the Rings, they lived in New Zealand for like 3 years. if somebody asked me to live in New Zealand for 3 years, there's no amount, I don't dislike New Zealand, but I'm just saying there's no amount of money that would get me to leave home for 3 years. It's just not going to happen. So anyway, the point is, those used to be my goals. And now my goals are, I have 2 kids. I want them to grow up happy and healthy. And I want to be around long enough to see them happy and healthy until they're about 30. So that would be, my youngest is 3. And so 27 years from now is 64. I'll be 71. So if I can make it to 71 and those guys be happy and healthy, that's it. Like I'm one of those people who, and I'm glad about it. I'm not going to be one of the deathbed people. It was like, if only I pursued stand-up when I was young because I knew I needed to do this. I need to pursue stand-up. I need to pursue a career in film and television and entertainment. I have to do, and I did do that, and I still work as a comic. But I don't, of course, I don't love it the way that you would need to sacrifice your life to it. I still consider myself at my core a stand-up, a comedian, and I don't think that'll ever change. Even if I retire from stand-up, it's who I feel like I am, and that so that would have been a giant regret of mine if I hadn't done it. So I have done the things that I was really hoping to do and remember, I mentioned my age, I'm 44. I'm not a spring chicken. So I've done my things that I thought I needed to do. And now I don't want to do, I could work harder at stand-up and I could do more theater tours and I could nudge my more famous friends to drag me along on certain things and get more popular myself. But all of that is going to lead to way more time on the road, way more time in hotels, and I know how it goes, and it's okay. And if you're a single person, it could be a nice party. But even a single person, you get tired of traveling when you're in your mid-30s and your 40s, and it's a lifestyle like a musician. I'm sure most musicians would tell you the same thing. It's a lifestyle that's better suited for you when you're a bit younger, and as you get older, you're looking for ways how can I stay home more, not go places. So some of the YouTube, so when you're saying what's your dream, it's that, to grow the kids up happy and healthy, live until I'm 71, and have things like my hobbies, like YouTube and cameras and stuff, pay the bills in a way where I'm comfortable. So I wake up every day and the way I make money is doing stuff I like, which fortunately for me has always been the case since my 20s, because I used to make all of my money doing stand-up and TV, and now I make some of it doing stand-up and TV and some of it doing camera-related things. So I'm good. And 100,000 subscribers. I would like 100,000 subscribers. I won't be satisfied, I'm sure, if I ever get there, but that is what I want right now.
Fair enough. Mark, can you let everyone know where we can find you on YouTube and just other social media?
Social media, I don't do enough of that to mention it, really. I'm too old. But Mark Bennett's Camera Crisis. I mean, I also have a Twitter and an Instagram of those 2 things, but I don't ever post there, so there's really no need. So just where you can find me is YouTube for the camera stuff. And if you want to listen to my comedy or my podcast about stand-up comedy, then you can go to markbennett.com. That's my website for comedy. And I have a podcast that I haven't updated in a few months, but it's coming. It's coming.
All right, Mark, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I'm a big fan of the channel, so it's really cool to be talking to you right now. So thank you for your time and letting everyone know a little bit more about yourself.
All right. Well, I hope I didn't bore you guys too much.